Hello there, Alaskans, wherever you are. Welcome to the Must Read Alaska Show. Coming to you from somewhere in Alaska. This is the place where we talk about, you guessed it, Alaska. Where we keep the mainstream media on their toes and where we are standing up for what's right in a world run by leftists. You can find out more by heading over to mustreadalaska.com and also checking out the Must Read Alaska YouTube channel for some really great content. But first, let's get this party started.
Well, welcome everybody to the Must Read Alaska show. I'm your host, John Quick, coming to you live from somewhere in Alaska, actually coming to you from the rainy Kenai Peninsula, which, I welcome the rain here on the peninsula because we had probably June, May-ish, June-ish, July-ish was sunny and 70 almost every day, which was awesome. But my grass needed to get a little green, so I welcome the rain. And we are just off a election on Tuesday, and we have a special treat for you today. We have Kathy Henslee today. But before I go into that, I want to just remind folks that if you listen to this podcast, maybe on Pandora, Amazon, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and you like it, please make sure to give us a review. Those reviews help. It takes literally, if you're on iTunes, you don't even have to write a review. You can just click on the stars. It takes you probably 5 seconds, and it helps us out a great deal. And then if you are big into apps, we have the Must Read Alaska app. So if you have a smartphone, which probably almost everybody in Alaska has one, you can go to the App Store, Android or iTunes, and just type in Must Read Alaska, and the app pops right up, and it's free for you. So we put a lot of time, money, resources into that app, and we hope that you enjoy it. If you do enjoy it, leave us a review on that as well. So we produce all this content pretty much for the most part for free for everybody, and don't ask much in return, but if you can leave a review, it would be very, very helpful. So without further ado, I want to welcome Kathy Henslee to the Must Read Alaska show. Welcome, Kathy.
Hi, John. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So for folks out there that maybe don't know you or getting to know you for the first time, or maybe they've heard a little bit about you, tell us a little bit about where you grew up and what brought you to throwing your name in the hat a couple years back and running for office.
Yes. Well, I've lived in Alaska my whole life. My parents fled San Francisco when I was 6 months old to move to the great state of Alaska, and I've been here ever since. My husband, Steve, and I have raised 5 children here, and their families have produced us 5 amazingly wonderful grandchildren who all live in Alaska and are thriving and doing well here. So, I'm an Alaskan girl. I love Alaska. Everything about my life revolves around what's happening in Alaska. I am a realtor. I have been involved in real estate for most of my adult life in Alaska, and really love development. I love economic issues. Those kinds of things are my interest. Some people like to knit or sew. I like to look at real estate projections, and that's kind of my thing. So the reason I decided to run, I'll just tell you this is my experience. Is my husband is a retired Alaska Army National Guard pilot. That's why we've lived in Alaska this whole time, but been a military family at the same time. And so Steve spent years out of our 35 years of marriage deployed overseas, fighting for our freedom, making sure that we were safe here, and that what we value as Americans was protected. And we would pack up those 5 kids in our minivan, drive out to the base, and put Steve on a plane to fly overseas, and not see him for a year. Sometimes he had 2-year-long deployments, but often he'd be gone for 6 months, 3 months, 8 months at a time. That was the sacrifice that we chose to make as a family. Now, Steve could have flown for a commercial airline, and we could be doing a lot different things in life right now. But the United States of America is very important to us, and our freedoms we do not take lightly. And so that was a decision we made as a family. We did not know how things were going to go for Steve. He was in the middle of things. When I would talk to him from overseas, I would hear bombs going off in the background, and my children didn't know, what the outcome was going to be. So Steve retired a couple of years ago, and one day I woke up, and I'll never forget it. And our entire city was shut down. Small businesses were closed. We were told to stay in the house. We were told this for, that the bureaucracy of our government was going to protect us. And that didn't sit well with me. For someone who's been in an actual, war zone, not me, but, sending my husband over there, that was a real slap in the face. I didn't do well with that. So I really started, talking to friends and family, really started praying about it. I am not an angry person. I'm a very easygoing, happy person. I have a great life. But I had a lot of anger, and I thought, this is not okay with me. And so after really praying about it for a while, I remember realizing, oh, this is what I'm going to do. And I knew nothing. I mean, I as a person who loves the Constitution, loves the United States, I keep up on politics. I actually graduated from Service High School early to go down and work in the Alaska State Senate as a page, because I was interested in what was going on in government. That's another kind of funny thing about me, is that when I was 14, Ronald Reagan ran and won his first election. And I was so thrilled with that. And the year I turned 18, I was actually able to vote for Ronald Reagan in his second term. And it was one of the happiest days of my life. I was so excited for what he was doing for our country. So that's me. I'm a little different than some people, I think. I love business, and I think politics and policy that we live under is very important, and it really does affect our lives.
Well, I think one of the things that's been fun to watch from the sidelines the last year or so is you've had a tremendous amount of support in the couple races that you've run. So talk to us a little bit about what that, what did you learn the first couple times around? I spoke with a friend of mine, former Senator Dave Donnelly, maybe a month or so ago, and he told me the story about, his first two races that he ran, he lost. And this is a guy who has been one of the most successful politicians in Alaska. He switched from the Democrat Party to the Republican. He's been in the state House, the state Senate. He's been he's the only conservative person on the Anchorage School Board right now. He's a assistant commissioner for Governor Dunleavy right now. He's had a very decorated career. Had he would have stopped because he lost twice, none of that would have happened. So is there anything that you kind of golden nugget takeaways in your first two tries here?
Yes. Oh my goodness. I have learned so much. And I laugh at myself about how naive I was about how this entire process worked. When I filed to run the first time, I didn't even see if there was another Republican in the race. I just knew that I had been represented by a Democrat for quite a while in my district. And so I was going to run against him. And my daughter and I printed up some flyers, and I just started walking around our neighborhood.
I love it.
And somebody contacted me and said, "Are you running for office?" I said, "Yeah." And they said, "Well, would you like some help?" I said, "Oh, okay." So, I knew that I would figure it out. That is kind of how I am. I knew that I would be able to figure it out, but I learned so much in that first race. One of the things that I learned is I did knock on every single door in our neighborhood, in the district that had a possibility of maybe voting for me. And after about 3 days, I turned to my husband. I said, "I don't know why we didn't do this 25 years ago. This is so great. You get to meet all your neighbors and really meet nice people. I love people." So that was really, exciting for me. That race, it was a three-way race at the time. There's an Alaska Independence Party candidate that also ran. And between the two of us, we actually beat that incumbent, but he took enough votes from me that I just barely lost. And so I thought, well, I learned some things. I really learned I had no name recognition at all. Running a campaign was totally new for me. There are some things that are similar to running a business. So it wasn't, I think I took to it pretty well. But then my thought was, I'm going to take a rest and kind of reassess and see if this is something I'm going to continue. And then, things in Anchorage are just so insane, absolutely insane. And I was going to every single assembly meeting. I started going to assembly meetings a couple of years ago, and I was going to every one, and it was so painful to sit there and just not be heard. And so the mayor is a friend of mine. His wife and I have been friends for years and years. She's just a lovely person. She's one of my favorite people. And so, of course, Mayor Bronson and I talk about these things in Anchorage a lot. And he knows where I stand. I know where he stands. And so he asked me if I would run for assembly.
He was probably like, I need some help. Please help. Yeah. Send in the troops.
And the assembly person in my district that was up is Meg Solitel. And she's very much a leftist. She really believes that government is the solution and that she has the answers, and doesn't really seem to realize that results mean something. You can look at results, and if your results are good, then your policies are good. If your results are bad, then your policies are probably bad. And that doesn't seem to occur to this assembly. So I ran a hard race for the assembly. I don't think I've ever worked so hard in my life. I always say it's the weirdest, longest job interview I've ever been on, and then didn't get the job.
Well, I think you guys raised like $160,000. Is that somewhere around the ballpark?
Yes. Yep. Just under that. And I, of course, never dreamed in a million years that was either going to be required or that we would even be able to do that. But people were so energized about getting her off the assembly. And so when we came to that, to election night, and as because I know you reported on this, trickled out painfully slow to find out who was getting what votes. And then when we realized that we lost, I was pretty stunned. I think people called me constantly for several days and just, what happened? How did that happen? And I'm not sure of all the reasons why. She had name recognition, and she had just gone through a recall that she won. That was I wasn't involved in the recall because of my standing as a candidate. And, historically in Alaska, recalls do not usually produce the results we're hoping for, unless, of course, we're on the other side of the recall and our person does not get recalled. But it's not a process that typically works in Alaska. So there were lots of reasons. She, of course, had a lot of money. And that, it was a very expensive race, which as a conservative, I disdain. I don't like that.
Unfortunately, though, that's what it takes. And
yes,
and I think that you gave it a valiant effort, and I think that one of the things that's exciting for conservatives as they look at your particular race right now is, raising $160,000 is a big deal. Not everybody can do that, especially somebody that's newer to running for office. And so I think that speaks volumes to the kinds of folks that you've attracted to help you, attracted to donate. And I think it made for a potential recipe for success for this time around. So tell folks about what you're running for currently and what happened Tuesday night.
Yeah. So I have to say, I just have to make a comment on something you just said, because that is so true. The volunteers, the donors, the businesses that came forward, and just people that they want the same things I want. I happen to be the candidate, but they are, they're working and doing things to make changes too. So that was so encouraging to me to have so many people come out. And like you said, just, I would wake up in the morning and, getting ready for my day and mapping out what we're doing and seeing the donations pouring in. I really thought, wow, people are behind this. They want change in Anchorage. So after I knew for sure that we had lost that assembly race. So Steve and I, we were thinking, okay, well, we're done. We ran twice. I mean, we ran as really literally as hard as we could. And so, obviously this district does not want me, and that's, the way the system works, right? So I'm going to, I'll probably move back into a position of supporting another candidate, or, I'm going to be involved, obviously. And that night I started getting phone calls, and mostly senators and representatives. And they called me, and I remember the first one. I won't tell you his name because I know he felt bad about calling me that night, but he said, you have name recognition, you've got this momentum, you have all these donors and that are people that are on board with you. And I know it's early. I know you just lost. I know you're exhausted, but we need you to run for a state office. And I was baffled. I got off the phone. I told Steve, I said, you're not going to believe that this call I just got. And I told him, and he's like, why would they call us? You're a 2-time loser. I said, I know.
Hey, you're just getting warmed up.
So we started having those conversations and talking to supporters, talking to our volunteers and saying, is this something we can do again? I've been running for 2.5 years now, almost 2.5 years. It's a big job. It's a hard commitment. There's a lot to it. And I still work. I'm a realtor, and I have a business, and I still have kids and grandkids, all that. So we said, we're going to take a little bit of time. We're going to really look at this, really think about it, and count the cost of what this is going to be. And then we decided, yes, we're going to go ahead and jump in again. Name recognition, the supporters that have already done so much. And I'm running for District 13 State House. The incumbent is Andy Josephson. And when I first jumped into the race, there were 2 incumbents, Chris Tuck, who's the candidate the incumbent that I ran against the first time, and Andy Josephson, because of redistricting. We had both of those legislatures to go against. And so, again, here I go, an uphill battle of a big, tough race. And, but then very quickly, Chris Tuck dropped out. So then I'm up against Andy Josephson. He's been in the legislature for over a decade. But one of the positive things for me is I have been campaigning in this district for quite a while. And Andy Josephson only has 2 precincts in this district. He happens to live in one of those precincts. And so that's why he's now in my district. So a lot of my voters know me in this district, and they don't know him that well. He has had a very organized and well-run campaign, probably better than anybody I've run against before, which makes me, it was interesting to have that information. But after the primary, I've talked to people and they've said, wow, he did that much work and you still came out ahead. Because I did end up winning the primary. I have 40, he ended up with 44%. I ended up with 48.5%, and Tim Hewitt ended up with 6.5%. So Tim Hewitt is the Independence campaign, Alaska Independence candidate. And he called me a couple of weeks ago. He and I talk every once in a while. He has, mostly he has conservative values, and he told me a couple of weeks ago that he is going to drop out of the race after the primary and endorse me, which I really appreciated. So I'll probably be talking to him in the next couple of days to see, what his timing is going to be on that. But if I can get his supporters, and he did say he'll endorse me, so I don't know why they wouldn't come over to me, but that would mean that I'm up by about 10 points. You can't count on all those people switching over, but I think that a good chunk of them will. So we've got a good, we're ahead by a good amount. It was more than I expected, I have to say, going into that night. I was hoping that, if we could be just about even, I'd be really happy. So to be ahead really feels good.
Yeah, one of the things for folks that are looking for key distinctions, because I know, in Alaska, we have a big chunk of our voters are the nonpartisan, kind of in the middle voters. And I believe, Andy is in the group of wanting to diversify our tax base. And he, even on his website, states that our state is linked to the fortunes of oil industry. And we don't want to divorce ourselves from oil, not hardly, but we want to set our own path. And so you have to be, for folks listening, words matter. And setting our own path means probably, I'm assuming here, so, but you're setting your own path of a new tax way. So income tax, sales tax, or something like that. And so if you could, very succinctly give a, elevator talk on the differences between you and your opponent, kind of what do you tell folks when you're knocking on the door?
Yes. And this is one thing about this race that I think is going to make it a little bit easier, because we are very different. We think very differently about the economy. I am for a full and renewed statutory PFD. I believe that is belongs to Alaskans and not the government. I do not believe that we need an income tax. And I think Alaska needs to be open for business. And what that means is that we need to have a stable and reasonable tax structure for businesses in Alaska. We need to be promoting business in Alaska. Alaska should be a world-class economic powerhouse, world-class, not just in the United States. We have the resources and the positioning and the people to have every opportunity in the world right here in Alaska. And I believe in that. I believe in Alaskans, and I believe in innovation and creativity and development. We have proven over and over again that we can do all those things responsibly. And so I am very pro business. And I believe that individual citizens make the best decisions for themselves. So to take money out of Alaskans' pockets from the PFD to give it to government for more special interest spending is absurd to me. Again, we see that giving government funds to special interests does not help the everyday individual Alaskan. What we're doing is we're funding a bureaucracy that's growing and growing, and we know bureaucracy never is efficient. They never produce. It's not where our money should be going. So that's a big, huge difference between Representative Josephson and I.
Yeah, and he is also. He's also a big proponent of returning our state benefits back to a defined benefits contribution, which for folks that are like, I don't even know what that means, which is totally fine because I didn't even know what half this stuff meant, 4 years ago. It's basically a pension style benefit package that guarantees you X amount of dollars, as opposed to a 401k, which guarantees a match, but also it doesn't guarantee you a rate of return because it could fluctuate based on the stock market. Now, defined benefits packages essentially would bankrupt the state of Alaska if we return to that with the current sources of income that the state has. It would be impossible to fund, and those things are going to be very, very detrimental to Alaska. We moved away from that because it just wasn't appropriate at the time, and even now. And I think the state, for the most part, has moved to essentially a 401k kind of package where they match a certain percentage. Now, I know tons of people that don't even have a 401k that are work in private sector jobs. And so the state's package is definitely way better than a lot of folks that I know that don't even have 401ks. And the argument to move to defined benefits is just kind of ludicrous, in my opinion. So, Kathy, tell us how does somebody, maybe somebody's listening in, they want to help you knock on doors, they want to help you make phone calls, they want to come do an event. Where can they find you? How do they get a hold of you? Where's one of your next events going to be?
Great. Okay, so our website is the best way to get a hold of us. It's Kathy Henslee for Alaska.com. And on that website, you can sign up to be a volunteer. You can find out where our next events are, and you can donate. And we are having an event this Thursday from 5:30 to 7:30 at Little Dipper Diner on Diamond. And we would love to see anybody there. I love to answer questions and meet people. If you have if you're wondering, if you're on the fence, I'd love to talk to you. And if you'd like to jump on and join this campaign, we do have a great group of people. It's a great way to get involved in what's going on in Alaska. And then my email is Kathy@hensleyforalaska.com. And so both of those ways would be great. I'll get back with you and we'll connect.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kathy, for joining us here on the Must Read Alaska show. And for folks interested, later today, I think around 1:00, we're going to be having an awesome special guest, the CEO and founder of Boxable, which is a one of the largest kind of new ways to think about housing. They produce these teeny houses that show up in a box. They're famous. One of the reasons why they're famous is because it's what Elon Musk lives in. So the gentleman that I'm going to be interviewing today, one of the founders and the CEO of the company. And it's going to be awesome to hear about what he's doing, because I think a lot of this off the grid kind of living here in Alaska, these boxable approaches to housing could work, because I think they're only $50,000 a piece. So anyways, folks, tune in at 1:00 there, and we'll be on, I think, Monday with somebody from the mayor's office. So until then, this is John Quick signing off from somewhere in Alaska. Kathy, thank you so much for joining us, and good luck on the campaign trail. We wish you well.
Thanks, John.